Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. Angus and I are really looking forward to this conversation with you.
Yeah, so looking forward to it. I've enjoyed listening to you share and speak at various different conferences, and I think that we're in for a treat today.
Yeah,
oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna thank you for inviting me, Angus and Rohini. Always love being with you. So
thank you.
Hopefully it'll turn out to be a treat,
It'll be a treat for us. Hopefully it'll be a treat for everyone. Yes. So you were remembering seeing Mark speak at a conference, and that struck you this morning, didn't it?
Yeah, I think that when I first came to this understanding, and I was feeling very insecure, and I was working with George and Linda, I was apprenticing with George and Linda, and I started to sort of contemplate what it would be, look and feel like to speak in public. And I know that George was a big exponent of, you've got to speak from your heart, and you've got to be spontaneous. You don't want to come to, you don't want to be any kind of teaching situation in it for it to ever feel like it's scripted. So I felt like I became this sort of a bit of a student of observing people who were speaking in public, particularly in the principal world.
Yeah.
And I will never forget this moment with you. And it was at the London conference. And I remember you coming to the stage, and I think that I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was something along the lines of, what should I talk about today? And then you took this moment, and it seemed like it was a very long moment where you just reflected on what you were going to say. And this is in front of hundreds of people. So there's this sort of like what I would in the past have called this sort of long pregnant pause was really compelling, because you looked like you're actually thinking, what am I going to say? And then you totally nailed it. Everybody was kind of eating out of the palm of your hand. It was a really beautiful moment, but it was kind of like, it just was a great illustration of someone who just really is trusting wisdom. Showing up to the mic, and everybody is just sort of on the edge of their seats, like, what is he going to say? What's he going to say? And I just thought that to me, it's like, yeah, I want to be there. I want to have that level of self-confidence. So that was always something that really stood out to me with you. You just had this incredible poise and capacity just to really follow your wisdom. That's how I've seen you over the years. And I don't know if even there's a question wrapped up in that, but I think that a lot of people struggle with this idea, can I follow my wisdom? And here you are, that someone that seems to have this incredible capacity to trust that part of yourself.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And I've seen that through the years in mentoring a lot of health practitioners, that I don't know, it takes like a faith or a knowing that we really are mind, and there's an intelligence that we all are a part of that will guide us to actually to guide us with what's in front of us. So to me, it's really about finding a feeling and not thinking about yourself, it's like, which is like, it takes I don't know if it takes practice, but it takes getting used to, and being able to sit without having your own personal thoughts that you're engaging, and just trusting really that something will come up, including, as I have had at times, talking to a group or to clients, a smaller group than 300, or 900, and just telling them that, I'm not really seeing something yet, but if we could continue to maybe talk together, something would occur. But along the way of my trusting that, it started to show up when I would share with groups that I was running in the psychiatric department, where I spent a lot of my time evolving my understanding of the principles and how to share it. And And I remember distinctly the turning point for me was when I was running a group and I was talking about relationships. And it was the principles with relationships. And I had a 90-minute class of 40 of our patients. And I realized as I was beginning the presentation or the talk that what I was going to share didn't feel right for the moment. It was like I was just going to repeat something I shared before.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got quiet. I learned to get quiet. So I got quiet and to try to quiet my mind, right? Not think about not having anything to share. And so a couple of things happened that was really like the turning point. First, it occurred to me as I was quiet to let the group know what was going on. So they wouldn't get nervous about here's this instructor, and he's quiet. So I told them what I was doing and shared that I was starting to share something, but it was kind of stale. It didn't feel right for today, but I'm getting quiet so I could find something that would be meaningful for us. And they supported that. You could just tell they supported my doing that. But what I remember distinctly was the minute I shared that and I turned to the whiteboard to maybe say something, it just occurred, it came to me what to share about the relationships, a new point about the principles and relationships came to me. And so that was a moment where I saw truthfully that that we're guided by our wisdom, we're guided by this intelligence, so that just kind of like erased any questioning of that happening. So I just try to get quiet to a nice feeling. Just to try to get a feeling of connection to whomever I'm with, and get that feeling, and then see what comes to mind.
Yeah, that to me is so amazing, and gosh, I wish and I hope and I aspire to be at that level of understanding. Because I think that, I guess I want to say, and even as I want to say this, it kind of seems like it's a silly thing to say, but it to me seems like, wow, there's a tremendous amount of courage to actually kind of, I guess for me, I'm wondering if there'll ever come a day where I get to experiment with that in front of a really large group of people, like in that room in London. It's like you were looking for the quiet, you were looking for that feeling. And I imagine I would be going through this panic, like, what am I going to say? And really going to the intellect to sort of figure out what I'm going to say. But to have the trust that I could just go to that feeling, that's to me, that's at a whole other level. But that seems to be, that's the direction to look in and go. And I guess you've had so many experiences at that level, you trust it fully. I guess I haven't had enough trust to do that yet, or to that level.
Well, let me tell you, so here's the thing, I think in our everyday life, we have made use of hearing from our wisdom. For example, thinking, having a thought that I should apologize to my spouse, is that wisdom? So it's there, or having a moment of being generous to your partner, or even you're listening to a client deeply and just kind of seeing, oh man, I see where we need to go. You see a teachable moment. It's the same thing. There's no difference, except it looks different. Because you're looking out and there's like this tons of people, standing room only. But the only difference, the only difference is how much you're thinking about yourself, really.
Yeah.
And so there are moments in life where I think everyone has really been directed by this wisdom. It's not beyond our accessibility. We just don't know that's really what we're pointing to. It just looks like in this arena, there's a different thing taking place.
Right.
Yeah. Now, I also want to say that if I'm called on to do a presentation like that at a conference, I reflect on it beforehand, right? So maybe even a month beforehand, I will be given a topic and I'll just stay reflective. But I'm staying reflective because once again, I know that I'll be fed ideas and stories and so forth from wisdom or from this intelligence. So, I get things, I get,
Yeah.
oh, here's where I could go. Here's a story, but nothing really coalesces until like maybe the morning of the talk. And then when I get there, I drop all of that and just get in the feeling of, just being with all of these people is just that wonderful feeling of like being of service. Yeah. So, but really it's about people just trusting it, giving up. Really, it's about just stopping thinking you've got to have something and listen more to the feeling with the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that I asked that question, because I guess I realize now it would be wrong for me to assume that you hadn't thought about what you might share on that morning. It's something, you may have had a theme, but it's that moment that you took to get into the feeling, which I think I now see that's such a beautiful thing to sort of experience that room and hold that room and move in that direction and let wisdom emerge from there.
Yes.
That feels like
That's
sort of three principle ninja quality level of understanding that I want to aspire to, but that's, no, obviously it made a real mark on me, but I appreciate that's a nice direction to look in.
And I love that you pointed out how that's happening all the time, day to day, without even noticing. It actually made me think about shopping, like food shopping, because Angus does most of the food shopping for the household. And he'll go to places like Costco, which I don't like going to at all, but you have no thinking, or it seems to me you have very little thinking about things like that. So you're just in the flow of it, following intuition. And if we go shopping, we're always like buying too much, spending too long, reading too many labels.
That's true.
That's why we don't go together.
Going to Whole Foods with Rohini is really difficult for me, because she treats it like a library. She has to read every label.
Oh yeah.
I like just to be in and out.
But then when we go clothing shopping, I'm very spontaneous, and you're the opposite.
That's true, actually. Yeah, so it all balances out.
Yeah, but it's following that feeling. I love that.
Well, yes, yeah. It's, and also I think really it's finding your way to say it, your way to share, just feeling comfortable being able to talk to people about your insight and realizations, and be you. And everybody's going to share this differently, but it really is about finding that feeling, and it'll come out your way, and staying with what you know. And real quickly, it was like my first month after listening to Sydney Banks, and George Pransky lived close to me. So we would meet every Tuesday morning and talk together about this new understanding. He'd already been with Sid several years, but he would do a public seminar, and I would sit there. I'm learning how to share this understanding. And George has an ease with metaphors. They're like second nature to him. They're another language. So I'm thinking, oh man, to get good at this, I've got to learn how to share metaphors. So again, there it is. There's my insecurity or not knowing that, you just share your way. So that thinking, just to show you the power of thought, had me go to a university bookstore to find a book on how to share metaphors. So, it's like, you just we don't realize the impact we have when we have had an insight and get into the feeling of that and share that from that knowing, and how much just whatever it is we've seen touches people. Because it's not so much what you're saying, it's really where you're saying it from. And if you're saying it from your knowing rather than, oh, I better share a metaphor here, you're very impactful. People something wakes up in them because of where you're coming from. So it was just some story about how at that moment, I didn't really know to just trust myself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a good reminder for all of us. So I have can I go next?
Yes.
I have a question, Mark, given that you've worked so much in the field of mental health.
Yeah.
And currently there's a lot of talk in general, you see it everywhere in social media about trauma. And I saw something recently, which was just a line that caught my attention, which said, trauma is not just a thought. And I can understand that from one perspective, looking at trauma as just a thought could seem very minimizing to people and not kind.
Yeah.
And so I absolutely understand the sentiment of that. But I also recognize experience can only come from thought. And so I'd love to know how you speak about trauma, if there's if there's anything you'd like to share about your experience working in the field and specifically around trauma and misunderstanding.
Yeah, so we could talk there. First, again, somebody makes a statement like that, or a client. I want to know what that means. Mm-hmm. Like, what does that mean for that person? So that I could understand what they're trying to say by that statement, Rohini. They're trying to say something, and I don't understand it when they just say that. So I'm always, again, in the process of being with people and helping people, inquiring where that's coming from. So I'm able to then help them see what this understanding provides in whatever area they're looking at, including trauma. So I think it's really, I think Sid's teachings around the trauma and the past are really misunderstood. And he's never said that people haven't had experiences in their life that really scare them, hurt them, are very traumatic to their feelings about themselves or about life. That happens, unfortunately, in our world. But what Sid was trying to do is help people understand that happened, but that human beings could live beyond the effects of that psychologically. And the one point that is so helpful to me is that what he means by thought is that, and everybody's doing this, is where we get a memory, which is thought. We get a memory of something from the past that has hurt us physically or emotionally, we get that memory. And then we think about it. We engage it. We give our attention to it. The minute we do that, as the principles share, we're having it again. We're experiencing it totally once again. Not maybe the physical harm, to that degree, but we're really experiencing that same past once again in our lives. And so he was just trying to say that traumatic experience, that actual event or events, if it proceeds through several years, is gone. It's no longer in existence in the physical plane. It doesn't exist any longer. So people can live free of that because it really doesn't exist except in the fact that we give attention to memories of that past. And the minute we do, we're in it again. That understanding is what he wanted to convey to people, so they could live beyond the effects of how they were treated by someone in their lives, that they could live beyond something that was not of their making, of circumstances that were very frightening and harmful, that they could live beyond that, that they could also see that it's just a memory and it's nothing, it has no life of its own. It doesn't have to take us down if we don't engage it. And so, so that was really for him the way people could live with more of their own well-being. They could live more now, how they truly are now, can start to engage more of their, what he would call their true self, or they could live more from love and understanding and forgiveness. They could actually move to a level of forgiveness, which gives people freedom from the past, really. So it's way beyond, it's just a thought. That doesn't mean anything, and should never actually just be an intervention. It should never be an intervention. This trauma is just a thought. Trauma is for people way beyond that, but we can help them see it doesn't exist any longer. Sometimes when I talk with my clients about that, sometimes if it feels right in the relationship, I'll say, let's look, let's, you and I right now, let's go walk to the place you had that trauma. Let's go walk and find that trauma right now. Let's go there. Well, you can't, but you certainly can bring it alive for yourself. Now, this is true across the board for all human beings. We could bring to life any reality we want, you see. So whenever we engage our thinking, we're going to bring a reality to life. We're going to experience it totally. So he just wanted human beings who had horrible experiences in their lives to get free of that, to see there's hope, to be free of that. That now, when a memory comes to mind, they get more freedom of choice, freedom of thinking about that. They can see with understanding not to go and get involved in it again. Now, as that happens sometimes gradually, sometimes much more all at once for people, but most of the time it's gradually. When people lessen their engagement of a traumatic memory, nicer feelings start to come to them. Because when you drop painful, stressful thinking, you naturally get these beautiful feelings we're born with, So they start to manifest and kind of pull people along. But that's really what Sid was wanting with bringing us to the principles in trauma, That's what he wanted people to just get an understanding for and a feel for. That it's over, it's gone. It was horrendous, you know, it was horrible to have a human being suffer like that. But you're much more than that. And so Sid wanted to wake up what you truly are so you could take care of yourself now going forward. I had an interesting, I just turned on the TV a couple, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when James Gandolfini was still alive, you know, the Sopranos actor. And he was interviewing 3 veterans of, I think, the Gulf War, who had experienced a great deal of trauma. All 3 of them said, this is just them saying it from their own wisdom, you know, I don't need to go back and re-experience my trauma anymore. I'm starting to live better, and it's not helpful for me to go back and think about it. All 3 of them on their own said the same thing. So that's really what Sid was trying to help by sharing the principles around trauma. And you could see, as we're talking right now, it goes beyond that statement, you know, it goes to an understanding that I really can be free of whatever, how I was treated by other people. I can be free of that. And that's true about, isn't that hopeful? That's just, you want a hopeful statement. You don't want a righteous statement. You see? That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that helpful?
Absolutely. And I think where people can sometimes be really hard on themselves is they think they're getting it wrong if they are still getting caught up.
Yeah.
That somehow they should be further along on that learning curve and not be impacted by whatever thoughts they might be getting gripped by. And like you said, it's an ongoing learning curve, and sometimes it happens all at once in a way, but more often than not, it's an ongoing unlearning that's happening.
You're speaking to something that is really the truth about the intelligence of mind healing. And once again, the principles are not there for you to never have experiences again. They're not like that. They're just what we are, so we can have an experience of life. The understanding of that helps us untangle the effects of being given beliefs that lead us into a lot of limitations or fear or insecurities. And so for most, it's a gradual process, really. And really, when it comes back, it's really the healing process. It's coming back. And if you really looked at it with people who have started to gain insights into the principles, and particularly the nature of thought, you'll see that when it comes back, it has a different feeling. When people re-experience that with their beginnings, have insights, they re-experience it a little differently. And so, you know, just as we were talking around sharing what you know, you go about taking care of your past your way. So again, you know, there's no, the principles don't have any say about how long it will take you or what it really even looks like. You know, what will you getting over something look like? You know, they're just there for you to get to know life, and also to begin to wake up for yourself, your understanding of your true nature and the nature of life, and these beautiful, beautiful feelings that we all live in. So moving in the direction of how you should handle your trauma as you're learning the principles, you know, it's an evolution. It's like you'll find your own way. You'll see how it'll just continue to develop your way. When I was working the 2 years in this inpatient psychiatry department in this hospital, university hospital, I had now people there were very, very seriously mentally struggling, psychologically struggling. So they would have psychotic thinking that was not real, you know, not really making sense at times. So in the time that they're there and working with the understanding when we can, and people get better, but they still drift into that habitual thinking. So I see it's a gradual process of just seeing, oh yeah, there it is. I can see that, man, when I just kind of looked at my traumatic memory, and there I go again, I'm right in it. So you're learning all the time. So somebody that really helped me with this was Keith Blevins. And he and I taught a lot in the 1990s. And he would tell a group about this, you know, about realizing, oh no, you know, I got caught up again. He'd say to the group, do you see this indentation in my forehead? It's from going, oh no, there I go again. And so that's how you want to hold it. And you just you just stay reflective. You just keep going to the truth that you've seen. And you'll find yourself living with more understanding that will bring more wisdom to you. And, you know, that might have forgiveness in it for yourself and others. It might have generosity in it, compassion for yourself. That's something that really, you know, I want to see wake up for people who have had traumatic experiences, is that they start to find compassion and understanding for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
There's an area where I have curiosity, and I think that I've had my own experiences where I feel like I have found a nice feeling, and I've got reflective and an insight, or a memory actually has come up about something that would probably be an example of trauma in my past, and I've looked at it from a different vantage point, and it's been really helpful. And then I think of the people who work in a professional way, working with trauma. So I work at a treatment center a couple of days a week, and here I am flying the flag of this understanding, and that's not necessarily the modus operandi of the other professionals there, or the therapists there. I'm not a therapist, obviously. And there's this sense that working in the field of recovery, a lot of people have whatever the coping mechanism is, and quite often it's alcohol or substance abuse, is they might not even be aware of their trauma. So I imagine those professionals, those therapists, are actually focusing in on that, digging up the trauma. And it's interesting because I think I had developed my own dogma about trauma work is bad because it's going back into the past and it's evoking those feelings and those memories, and that can't be the approach. And I guess there's a part of me that maybe still has a bit of that running. I don't know, but I'm just curious to know what Sid would have thought and what you would say about how, yeah, you know, there are those individuals in society who have developed these coping mechanisms because they're completely unaware that, you know, that they've had some experience that they've just basically bottled up or stored away. And for whatever reason over the years, they're not even conscious that they had that experience.
What's the question?
Well, I guess. Oh, I thought I had asked the question. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm curious.
I guess that I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. Yeah. So
No, it's okay.
No, well, my question was like, I'm curious how you would respond to that, or Sid would, in the sense that is that just seems like a very difficult area when someone isn't even conscious of their trauma, and yet they've developed this sort of coping mechanism of alcohol or substance abuse. Well, how do you work with them? I guess that's the question.
Well, let me see. I think that the intelligence of mind, if someone is working with a professional, or with a coach who they trust, the intelligence of mind will give what a person needs to look at when they're ready. I don't look for that. I don't look for what's unconscious. I talk with people around how, something outside of themselves, they're believing, is helping them feel differently. So I try to start there with people, because that's really the hook. When people are coping with something, they're using something outside of themselves, right? It could be many things. Shopping at Costco could be one of those things,
No, that's my trauma. That's not my coping mechanism.
That's my coping mechanism.
No, jokingly, but shopping could be.
Yeah.
I had someone who was so stressed out with painful thinking that as soon as that person got home from work, they went on to over here in the States, we've got these shopping networks on the TV, and she would buy something, and she said to me, I need help because I can't even bring a date home to me because there's no room. I've got boxes all over. And she had to make a little trail from her bedroom to the kitchen to be able to make coffee. So I want people first to see, why is that happening? What's connected to that? And really have people understand that they're giving power to this outside coping mechanism, but that's not really what's allowing them to feel differently. So that's where I start. I don't look for anything unconscious, because I know if that person really needs to take a look at something, that will come once they settle down, relax, start to gain an insight into the principles. Now, I may know that they've had trauma, but I might know, I probably would know something like that. And somewhere along the lines, I might ask about something. I might ask about that. Hey, I know you've had this, experience in your past. Is this something that you'd like to take a look at? But I don't really look for bringing that forth, because people will look at that with you when they're ready. They just will start to look at that. And if you're speaking about the understanding of the principles with people, they're going to already start to make some changes in their lives. They're already going to do that. So they may, after being with you a couple of sessions, they may come back and say, you know what, I've had less of a stressful week. I'm not as angry as I was. I didn't get angry when my so-and-so spoke about this. I'm feeling more joy. I just had I just started laughing more. So you're going to start to see this in that framework with people. They'll bring you I just saw I need to talk with you about something. So I'm not against other well, it's not against anything. It's just to share that I don't look for anything unconscious, because I just know that a human being will bring up what's important to them when they're ready. And if I have seen something and it comes to mind for me, I'll run it by them. I'm talking more about why is this happening? And that they're getting a good feeling from drinking, drug use, shopping, because while they're doing that, they've dropped their painful thinking. That's really what people need to see. And once they see that, they start to get nice feelings. They start to see how to apply that across the board in their lives. And once they take that stock with that, settle down around that piece, that if I let go of painful thinking, I'll feel better. For example, then wisdom will give them something that, they need to resolve.
Mhm.
That's how I see it, Ankush.
Yeah. And so I kind of guess it goes back to the beginning quite neatly. Is it looking for that beautiful feeling and trusting that will deliver the wisdom and the insight that our clients need in respect to.
Yeah, you sitting in it. I guess another way of saying it is, I'm not sitting with an objective or an assumption. That allows me to really be guided by wisdom as well as the client in that moment of work. So I'm not sitting there assuming they need to get to their trauma. I'm not sitting there with an objective. We've got to talk about your trauma. I'm sitting there without that, wondering, why are you thinking the way you're thinking? What is it that you are not understanding about psychological functioning that we can talk about that will help you? You see? So it's a different place in which I'm sitting. Now you have to, if you're going to really allow yourself to be guided by your wisdom, intelligence of mind, you've got to get out of the way. And if you've got an objective or an assumption about what you've got to cover, you're in the way.
Right.
Now it may occur to me, but then I'll inquire about whether that's something we should talk about today. You see, but I'm not sitting there with that objective. I'm sitting there with nothing except getting curious about why is this person saying what they're saying? What's going on behind the scenes? And, I get curious about what they're telling me, and then I'll try to teach to that from my understanding and then listen some more. So that's to me a better answer.
Yeah.
And then from a 3 principles coaching or therapy, you don't have an assumption about needing to get to trauma. You can't have it. Not only will you have a misunderstanding, will you be misdirected, because your client may not even be ready. And particularly, like you say, Ankush, if they don't even realize it, you can't be sitting there thinking that's the objective. So does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So even making that assumption, Ankush, of your question, is not, it is personal thinking. And when you're with someone to be of help, to be of service, to help find a way to share with them why they're having the experience they're having, where it's coming from. You don't want that thinking on your mind.
Yeah. And it sounds like a lot more interesting and fascinating journey to drop the agenda and just see what shows up from a place of wisdom and that feeling.
Oh, definitely.
Mhm.
Because again, you know, either you or your client may see something. You see? So
Yeah.
it's very interesting. It is an interesting journey. It's just being interested. And if you're interested in your client and where they're coming from, and you get interested and you ask from that interest, you'll see a teachable moment.
Mhm. And I really appreciate what you're pointing to in terms of the wisdom in the design and the kindness of the design. And that in my experience with this understanding, people have a deeper sense of safety within themselves. And then often as part of that journey, emotions will come up, memories might surface, but they have the capacity to be with them in a different way. And that really it was their wisdom that was having them perhaps not remember something or deal with it at that point in time. And with a deeper grounding, deeper understanding, then maybe something might show up, but it shows up in a way that isn't destabilizing, is actually healing and therapeutic.
Very much so. Very much so. You know, one of the ingredients of us being there with our sitting and our understanding is hope. So, you know, just going to the field of recovery, there's, you know, the idea of denial and resistance. Well, it is so if they're not hopeful. No one's going to venture into something that's kind of scary for them to look at if they don't have hope, you know, that you've got something to deliver, you know, or you're a person to be safe enough to look at it, right? What you were talking about, you see? So one of the beautiful things about the principles is that it gives people hope. And once people have hope and they feel safe to be with you, like you're just describing, things come up for them to share in a way that isn't disruptive to them.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Isn't
it's
that
actually
beautiful?
expansive for them.
It's what?
It's actually expansive for them.
Yeah, it allows for
Freer.
learning. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really helpful to sort of explore this. And it makes me wonder too how if we can go in with an agenda where we might try to sort of cajole or force our client in a specific direction, and they might not be even ready for it. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
let them do it at their own pace, at their own wisdom. And it sounds like a lot more gentler. Even though it's a gentler ride, it would appear to be a lot more insightful and a lot more hopeful.
Mhm.
Yeah, you just have to see. That's true. That's perfect. Exactly. And you know, the other thing about working with this understanding, the three principles, that it's a level playing field. It's human to human. So you're not there. The minute you think this is the way you gotta go, you're back into making assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to be directed by the deeper hearing of this human being. That's how you want to be directed. And there really isn't any worry that you won't get to the important stuff, you know.
Yeah.
You know, because the minute you're listening that deeply, you're going to see something that will be of help for this person to understand.
Yeah, and then there can even be the expectation from the client. Sometimes, like, they have this sense that you're here to give me tools that I can put in my belt, that I can take away, you know. what are the valuable nuggets of information that, you're going to help me on my way. And so often it feels like, yeah, it can be this incredible conversation where I'm learning just as much as they are. It is, like you say, a very level playing field. But I think that it's interesting, that sort of idea that there needs to be this agenda can sometimes come from the client too, that they kind of like come and it has a whole different quality to it.
Well, you have to help them with that. I've seen that, and I learned that, I mean, let me tell you, I have fallen into a number of pitfalls along the way. And so what I'm sharing with you is years of bruises along the, I don't know. But you help your client see that this is a different way of going about their finding well-being. So I talk to people, a lot of times they'll say, it's been popular to say something, I need something for my tool chest
Tool
or
belt. Yeah.
tool belt or something,
Yeah.
And I'll just say, well, this is different. This is about an understanding. It's not about tools. And you and I will talk and we'll find an understanding. And then when you see this understanding, when you get an insight that is this understanding, you will create your own tool. You'll find your own tool. And so I really help them get settled in that we're going to talk differently, but that it's much more rewarding in that. And I'll say the understanding is about a set of principles, about a teachings from about a man called Sydney Banks, but it's my understanding of that leads people to find their own love and understanding, well-being, goodwill, and wisdom. But it must come from an understanding, and that'll be from us talking together. How's that sound? Most people are saying, yeah, let's go for it, in some way or other. Mm-hmm. So I help them settle down with their assumptions or agenda as well. So then they'll say, okay, well, what do we talk about? So then they go, okay, all right, well, what's this understanding then, But anyhow, that's how I help them.
Yeah.
See?
That's beautiful. Well, I think we're at about time, but thank you so much, Mark. I love this conversation. And throughout it, I've noticed just the beautiful feeling that I'm dropping into inside of myself. Yeah. So it's just lovely to meet you. Yeah. It's been, it's just such a beautiful direction to look into, see the hopefulness and to feel that space of love that is there and that space of peace. And that feeling is what does the work, really. We're the conduits of that. Yeah. And you're a beautiful example of that.
Yeah. Really appreciate you, Mark. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Ankush and Rohini. I love this. And let me know if I could support you in the future, but this was great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And I am going to have to correct you at this point. I am not Ankush. I'm Angus. I know.
Why did I say that? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. It's fine.
Oh, please.
Angus. It's close.
I know.
It's forgivable.
Oh, please accept my apology. That's terrible.
It's fine. It'll add levity to the whole interview. Lots of love, Mark. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.